Welcome to this week's Fireside Chat with Jesse. I am joined today by Lisa Rafter, CEO and publisher of The Monitor. Thanks for joining me, Lisa.
You're welcome. So great to be here, Jesse.
No, absolutely. And it's always a little intimidating when you get somebody on a program that interviews people for a living. So hopefully I can manage pretty well here. So
I've seen your fireside chats. You do pretty darn good, Jesse.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you for that. And for those people, Lisa, who I'm assuming there's not many of them who have not run into you yet in equipment finance, do you mind just kind of introducing yourself and your career?
Sure, you bet. So this marks my 36th year in the industry. I started back in September of 1987, and I was a kid literally right out of college. I went to college here in Philadelphia, St. Joe's, and I had the opportunity from a colleague where I was working part-time at a grocery store, and she said, "You need to meet my Uncle Mike." A lot of people know Mike Malloy. So Mike Malloy and I had lunch. He was this really intense guy, and he interviewed me. I didn't know what I was being interviewed for, but he had a recruiting firm, Malloy Associates, and he had a publication, Monitor. So he said, "Oh, well, you could possibly fit in either place. What do you think?" So then he sent me on a subsequent interview with Jerry Parato, who at the time had just bought the company from Mike Malloy. So I interviewed with Jerry, and the more I thought about it, I thought the Monitor was a good fit. I loved to write. I was an English major in undergrad, and I took the role as editor, and it was just me. So I was the editor, kind of put me back in a corner in the office, and pretty much literally Jerry said, because Jerry was running the recruiting firm. So he said, "Lisa, good luck. You let me know if you need anything. We're going to put you back there. And we have this bi-monthly, it was a print black and white newspaper." He said, "So do whatever you want with it, and I'm here if you need me." So that's how it started. And I really was back in a corner and had an opportunity to do what I wanted. I had so much autonomy because they really hadn't done much with the newspaper at that time. And here I was, this 22-year-old kid, and I thought, this is really fun to be able to build something from scratch. So I pretty much got that opportunity and did that. And then I hired my first employee, was Susie Angelucci, who a lot of people know. Yeah. And Susie was also very young, in her early 20s. So she started in the subscription department because I needed someone to answer the phone calls when people subscribe.
Sure.
Right? And then I would hear Susie on the phone, and she was the kind of person who could definitely sell snow to an Eskimo because she was so passionate and loved it. And she would go on and on about this publication. So I said, "I think we should step you up a little bit and get you to sell advertising." So that's how Susie and I, became, the two of us running the publication. And then I was there for the next 17 years. So I was the editor, and I got to be part of starting the Monitor 100, part of starting Monitor Daily, which everyone knows as the e-news, the website. So many of the things that became part of our brand, I had an opportunity to be very much a part of. And 17 years into it, I decided, let me go try and do my own thing for a while. So I started my own publishing company. And with that publishing company, I published Newsline for NIFA. So I did that for many, many years. I started an online publication with Sudhir and Membal, who a lot of people know. And Sudhir and I had a publication called World Leasing News because Sudhir is pretty much an international consultant. So we did that together. And I did a couple of other publications as well. Then 10 years into that, I took a massive left turn and spent 3 years with Odessa. I was hired by the CEO at the time, Madhu Natarajan, and I sold software for 3 years, and which I know you've got some experience with that.
Sure.
So that was really, really fun. And what I loved about it is I got to understand technology and the software side of the business, something I sold ads to companies, that were in software, but I didn't know a lot about it. I also got to travel a lot. I've traveled all over the country to all the different equipment finance companies. And as you know, that thrill, met the leaders and met the teams. So that was really fun. And then at that point, I had reached out to the current owner of Monitor, which is and was Jerry Parado, and we had obviously spent years together. And
Sure.
he was getting to the point where he was ready to retire. So I said, "Are you thinking about him? Would you consider selling the publication, selling the recruiting firm?" And a year later, we signed the final agreements, and I had the really it was like a dream come true. I have to tell you, when I was 22 starting out and had this great opportunity, and then 5 years ago when I bought it, it was like, wow. So that's my whole 30 something year journey to where I am today.
No, that's fantastic, and to kind of see it all come full circle
Yes,
in the time frame and everything else, and all the blood, sweat, and tears you put in for the first 17 years,
yes.
and now you can, you had that backbone that you had started. So that's fantastic. And on your kind of career journey, being with one customer for 3 years, selling software is unique in itself. But
Yes.
what I can appreciate now, kind of like being an independent,
Mhm.
is I'm not saddled with one company that I'm representing. Right now, you can go out and, like, this is such a rifle industry, because let's face it, when you sell lease accounting software, I mean, what was there, of the 1,000 plus companies, maybe 50 that were a
Yeah,
good fit for, maybe.
yeah. So true.
And they make a
And that's
decision every
it.
5 to 10 years, and you're just like, now what? Like,
Yeah.
now what? So that's one of the things that it's been a little refresher for me over the last couple of years, since I kind of stepped out and now on my own. It's like, okay, now I can go help anyone, and it's
Ah,
just,
yes,
it's awesome.
the scope changes. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then as far as like getting into the monitor, what you've been able to achieve with that publication, since you officially took it over 5 years ago, is quite remarkable. So I don't know, if you want to talk about that mindset in regards to, you've already came up with the Monitor 100 before, but
Yep.
it's like, the top women in equipment finance, top 40 under 40, most innovative icons.
Yeah.
Like, do you mind kind of talking about the brainstorming that kind of went into that, and what led you to do some of this recognition for our industry colleagues, Lisa?
Yes. Yes. As you know, and a lot of most people in our industry know, Jesse, what makes our industry so special and unique are the people.
Yeah.
And we all have this inside joke that it's California. Once you
Mhm.
leave, once you get in, you can never leave. And that's our industry.
Yep.
So we all know each other, and people like me who go 30 years back, you go back very many years as well. We love that we're all in this industry together, even if we move around in different places.
Mhm.
So the monitor really gives, of course, the industry an opportunity because it's a platform to recognize people and leaders and people of all ages, and also more recently, as you said, to just bring the diversity of our industry really into
Sure.
focus so we can begin to see the rising stars, the new leaders, and just give everybody an opportunity to be seen and to be heard. So that has been so fun. And it's interesting. I was doing a quick email search last night for somebody, and her name popped up, and I saw an email from her from 2019. And she just was gushing about being chosen to be in the first women's issue. And I was reading it and reliving it because it was the first time we'd done that, and just what it was like for all of the women and anyone that we've had the opportunity to acknowledge. So really do think that what we do with all the things and all the platforms that the monitor has is that, right? An opportunity to really give people a voice and have so many really valuable people be seen.
Sure, and especially like you mentioned, like the diversity around it, the diversity of not just skin color or sexual orientation, diversity of thought as well.
Sure.
Because
All that.
especially in this industry where you're just like, oh God, I heard that before, heard that before. You
Yeah,
seem to
more
always find a way to push the needle forward a little bit and have more uniqueness, which is
totally.
refreshing.
It's so important in any industry, but for ours right now, absolutely agree with that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So another big thing I wanted to talk about was Converge. Um,
Yeah.
So, or I guess I don't know, Monitor's 50th anniversary
Uh-huh.
event that you're putting on in June. I should let you say the name. I'm sorry about that.
That's perfect. Yeah.
So, let's get into that. I'm excited to be there. Looking forward to seeing some people and in the I guess the format that you put on, Lisa. So, what was your thought in regards to putting that event on, and then why the rebrand?
Yeah. So thank you for the opportunity to talk about it because it's been so exciting. And I knew we wanted to do this last year when it was year 49. And I said to the team, it's 50 next year. So let's do something big and amazing. And if you can see right above my head, the 25th, which was 25 years ago, and we did a magazine. And that was really fun. And I can't believe it's been 25 years since. And at that time, we'd never done a magazine before. It was still
Okay.
newsprint. Right. So
Okay.
that was
Okay.
like our first foray into magazine style, which we fell in love with. So that we stuck with it. So at 50, I mean, right, that's just a big number. And we wanted to celebrate and do something big here where we are in Philadelphia and get all the leaders together and anyone from their team who they wanted to participate in it. And we spent a lot of time last summer, early fall, looking at different venues all over the city. And Philadelphia is a big city and lots of options. We walked into the doors of the National Constitution Center, right in
Mm,
Independence Hall, and we said, "Oh, this is it. This is it. This is like the birthplace of America." Right,
sure.
you've got flags on the second floor of every single state in the union. Across the street is where the Declaration of Independence was signed. You can see it out the windows. It's a relatively new building, so it's all glass, and it's
Mm,
just gorgeous. And what a place to have an event where we're commemorating 50 years of our industry's publication. So we landed on that. We all looked at each other and said, "Yep, this is the place." So we knew we were going to have a gala and have awards that would acknowledge people who've made major contributions over 50 years. So
sure.
the trailblazers, the pioneers, the legends, the people who've made a difference with diversity, the people who've made a difference, in their communities. So we've got all these really powerful awards queued up that we're so
Cool.
excited about. Yeah, we're
That's
calling it
awesome.
like the Academy Awards of Equipment Finance. So we're gonna have like, I think we'll probably even have a red carpet, Jesse, and maybe
Okay.
like a
Okay.
photo
Okay.
area where we'll take all
Are,
the
are,
pictures.
are you coming up with like statues, almost like a Grammys type thing,
Yeah,
or it's like okay, that's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. We're
That's
gonna
fantastic.
do something like that. Exactly. So we're gonna do some kind of our version of Oscar,
Sure.
and
Sure.
that leads us to the name Converge. So because it'll be a Converge Award, that's what we'll call it.
Okay.
And
Cool.
why we wanted to give the event a brand is because it's more than just an award ceremony. We added to the event the whole afternoon event that day, which is a full day event where we're going to reflect on and create the future of the industry. So
Okay.
we said Converge is really an opportunity to converge all of the people in our industry to reflect on the past, celebrate the present, and really begin to create the future. So that's where the Converge comes from, where all
Okay.
those things intersect.
Okay.
So the afternoon event, which I don't know what I'm more excited about. I guess both equally, but each time I talk about both, I'm so excited about what we're seeing. So the daytime event is designed to have industry leaders come together with a keynote speaker, John Hagel, and John is a global speaker. He's a futurist.
Okay.
He was a partner at McKinsey, a partner at Deloitte, a partner at Boston Consulting. He has written 8 books. I mean, he's a well-known, really not only business leader, but he is a person who provokes people to think about the future. That's his job. That's what he sees his job is. So he's going to come up to talk about what he thinks we need to be thinking about and considering and what we might be, what's lurking around the corner. And then I have a panel of industry experts and leaders who will be moderated. The panel will be moderated by John. And
Okay.
that also gets everybody to think, what are the issues? What are the topics? What are the most important things we should be thinking about and going into the future? Then the next whole part of the day, which will be pretty much all afternoon, it's a crowdsourced event. So everything that gets talked about on the panel and with John Hagel gets people thinking. And then we're going to spend the rest of the day at people's tables and with big post-it notes and flip charts on the walls. And we'll probably use some kind of apps. We'll be saying, what's important? What are you guys seeing? What are the topics? Then we'll break the group up into the topics that are most important. So let's say 10 topics come up and come out of this. We'll put 10 groups around. We're taking over the whole hotel. So we'll have groups all over the hotel, but all the topics that are important to them. So that's what we're really designing the whole day event to be, so that the industry leaders get to say and look with each other. Because one of the things we discovered is when you go to a conference, oftentimes the smartest people are the ones in the room, the attendees, right? They're the ones who know what keeps them up at night. They're the ones who are thinking with themselves
Sure.
and their teams, right? What are we doing next? What's important? So we want to get everybody in the industry talking together with each other about what are our challenges, what are our opportunities, and let's talk about them together. So that's what Converge is. And it really is an opportunity to not only celebrate 50 years, but again, to begin to create the future. So, so excited about it.
Yeah, no, I love that platform. Because typically you sit there and audience participation, because even if people want to talk to, like, do I really want to get this out there? Maybe they just
Right.
don't have the confidence to kind of throw it out there. What
Yeah.
I've kind of seen from some of these like EF cares events, when you have more of that intimate setting, or you're forcing some of that stuff on people,
Yes.
not forcing, but encouraging, I
Yeah.
guess, or fostering the environment, I guess, for that networking. It's just more powerful of why an attendee should want to go, because you're giving them the platform to speak with other industry leaders, and they're not going to get that at a typical conference.
It's really well said, Jesse, and that's one of the way you just expressed it, because that is one of our goals, is to have we have a facilitator who I'm having from Vermont. He's going to come down and facilitate the day, because this is what he does. He's been doing it for 20, 30 years. He's so funny. He's like, you have to have tables with 6 or 8, no more than 8. He said, I'd prefer 6, because I want people to be that tight, that close, be able to speak to each other and hear each other, so you're not yelling across a table. So we have to configure the room in the ways that he's saying makes people the most, like you're saying, comfortable with being
Sure.
heard, being vulnerable, saying things that they wouldn't say in a room of 800 people, where there's this big stage. And that's the idea. And for us as an industry to have our goal will be to have every person who is in that room be heard in one way or another, because the environment will pull for it, like you're saying.
No, and that's fantastic. I just left the roundtable earlier this week, and that
Mhm.
was pretty much one of the only events that I've been to outside of some of the ones we've had, where
Yeah.
it's like they actually encourage some of that, but it's only the same. Maybe they sprinkle in like the same 5 people and
Yeah.
it's like it's the same 5 people giving their opinions all the time. It's like, yeah,
Yeah,
come on, let's get some
exactly.
diversity of thought in here.
Like you said earlier. Yes. Yes. Because you never know. Sometimes it's the quietest person in the room that has this brilliant idea, and they're not talking as much, but given the opportunity, and who knows.
Never know, but that's good. And my first mentor I had in equipment finance was always like, if we do a dinner, 6 people, no more than 8 at a round table. And I'm kind of like, seems rather ineffective, because now you're limiting my dinner and the number of people that I could sit at a table with.
Yeah.
But
Isn't that
it
funny?
makes it makes sense, because then you can have a conversation with that person directly across from you, as opposed to like yelling down the end of the table.
Yep, yep, yep. That's what I'm learning and hearing, so I get it.
That's fantastic. So how are we looking? I think this Friday is early bird
Yeah,
registration.
yeah.
How is everything shaping up? We're what, 2.5 months out?
2.5 months out, really good. I mean, we keep saying on all of our materials, limited seating available. And some of the people on my team are like, we really need to let people know that we're serious. Like, it really is limited. If you go to a big event, even like ELFA, that's so big, 1,200 people can fit. We really are limited. So once the early bird is on Friday, we're getting closer and closer to that point, and we'll let people know when we're like, okay, we only have X number of seats left. But it is so far, it's a really good showing. A lot of the people you would expect, but then also some people who are surprises, and I think will love being part of it. So far, I mean, it's going to sell out, just a matter of when. And we wanted it to be that way, because like you said about the intimacy, we wanted it to feel like an exclusive event, and even the afternoon part to be more intimate with less,
Sure.
not, it'll still be hundreds of people, but a group where it's manageable. And in the evening, it's kind of like a gala. So, people will be dressed up, and we want it to feel like that, a very special night.
No, no, the whole format and everything is cool. I just learned about some of that stuff today too. So I'm
Okay.
further intrigued. And then, because at the end of the day, if slash or when this goes as planned,
Yeah.
it's like, what's the recipe for this? How can we potentially maybe converge more frequently and not wait another 50 years?
Be around one. And then secondly, yes, I think there are things to converge about, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
absolutely.
in unique ways. So that we'll see how that goes. You're right.
Perfect, perfect. Well, thank you for sharing on the that 50th anniversary event. I'm excited for it and looking forward to being a part of it, Lisa.
That's great.
Um, Also wanted to talk about the leadership development program that you started. Are we on cohort 4 right now?
Yeah, cohorts 4 in 2 weeks. Yep.
4 starts in 2 weeks. So I guess what was in your mindset of starting a leadership development program? Because obviously this industry's starving for content like that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's to a degree why, right? Because I did see that the industry was starving, could see the hunger in particularly some of the younger people. So,
Sure.
right. And some for people who don't know this about me, probably most people don't know this about me. When I was in my probably 30s, was still publisher of the, I mean, editor at the time of the Monitor. And I went back to school to get my master's degree in psychology, just because I
Yeah,
have a lot of interest in people, what makes them tick, and how people can truly become all of who they are. And that was my thing. Even as at that point, I probably had a staff of 10 people, and I was in my 30s, and a lot of the people who worked for me were in their, mid, late 20s, young. And I loved developing them. Like, see, like Susie. Susie, you're going to kill me when you hear me say this, when you watch this, but watching Susie become who she is and blossom into, she didn't even know some things about herself, and I would see them and be like, this is, you've got this is, and then she would develop it within herself. So I went back to school again to become, I thought, a therapist. I was going to go out and, change the world and go, be a therapist and run groups and all that. Right around the time the Monitor was really doing well, we kicked off the Monitor 100, and I just loved it. So I stayed with the Monitor, stayed in the industry. But here I had this, master's degree in psych. Of course, you use that every day anyway, right? I mean, that
sure.
there's
Yeah.
always use for it. However, I really still and continue to have a major interest in people. I've done a lot of volunteer work over my career, and worked with abused women. I've worked with at-risk youth. I've currently am part of a nonprofit for children. So Magic, which is, a lot of Steve Grosso from Auxiliary, his nonprofit. So I do that. And I really wanted to continue to utilize my degree and my love of people in those ways. But then, like you said, a few years ago, I started looking around our industry and the more young people I talked to through our Next Gen issue and just in general. And as I looked around at the aging of our industry, and if I look at the Monitor 100, most of the leaders are, they're probably on their back nine. And in the next 5+ years, right, probably going to retire, myself included.
Say, oh no, what's it
Right? I mean, we all started, a lot of the people in the Monitor 100 started in the 80s and 90s. So I kept asking the question, are we ready? Is that next generation of leader ready to take the reins and bring our industry into the future? And I did a lot of interviews. So I talked to a lot of leaders one-on-one. I did a bunch of focus groups, Jesse, where I'd have 5, 7, 8 leaders on a focus group roundtable, kind of a Zoom like this, because this was all 2020. So it was
Sure, sure.
COVID. And I also had a lot of people saying yes to taking all my calls, because nobody was doing anything. So it was great. I know I was able to get like 10 CEOs on a call because they were like, sure, why not? Somebody to talk to. So we did these great roundtables and learned that, yeah, we don't really have anything formal in place. And, we would love something like that. So we kicked off our first cohort in 2021, September. As you said, we have our fourth in 2 weeks here in April. And the participants, they're just loving it because what we're doing, Jesse, it's not, I describe it like this, it's not linear learning. So like linear learning to me is learning how to be an accountant or learning how
Sure.
to you know, put a pair of glasses together. You know, there's you learn one thing leads to the next, leads to the next, right? It's linear. Even if you think about education, first grade leads to second, leads to third, and they all add
Sure.
up. So the way that Stripes approaches our development is transformational learning. So
Yep.
the way I describe that is you're humming along, and a breakthrough happens. That is nonlinear. You don't expect it. It's an aha moment. And it happens because there's something you don't know that you don't know, right? If I said to you, do you want to learn about physics? You'd say, sure. I don't know physics, but I know that I don't know physics. So you'd go pull a book off the shelf, start understanding physics. That's not a breakthrough. That's still more learning, linear learning, right? Where truly what we really want people to do is see things about themselves that they didn't know, they didn't know. And then they go, wow, I had no idea that that is what's keeping me from X.
Sure.
Or that hurdle, that barrier that's been in the way, I've been carrying it around my whole life and it's been in the way and it's gotten in the way of what I am committed to with my company, my team, my role. And those moments, because we've have 66 people in Stripes right now. Our next group that starts in 2 weeks, we're getting close to 100. Those 100 people are having a moment where I didn't see that about myself, and now seeing it, it's like a new pair of glasses. It's like looking at the world like this through this lens. You take the lens off and you go, oh, okay, now I can see the view of the world in a new way. So that's how we've designed Stripes, and it's
Okay.
been really fun, the transformational piece. And then, as you know, we have the master talks. So
Yep.
they have the transformation, but then they also learn from all the leaders in our industry and, listen to their journeys and get so much value from that. And then we also have the workshops where we will really hone in on something specific like innovation or disruption or creativity. So we also bring, and we have a new workshop that's called self-care, because we learn from people, how do you work so hard and love what you do, but how do you take care of yourself? So we threw in a
Sure.
workshop recently on that. So it's been exciting, rewarding. We're getting great feedback from the participants and from their leaders. So I think it was the right time and a necessary piece for our industry, as you said, to really satisfy that hunger of people to be developed, because that's what they want.
No, that's what they want, and unfortunately, sometimes they need some direction. No matter
Mm,
like how successful they may have been to date, anything else, everyone always needs that little, like you said, that breakthrough aha moment. So
yes.
yeah, no, that's fantastic. And what was it like when the first cohort was going through? Were you like, is this working? Is it going? Like I can imagine the amount of time you've invested into that
Ah,
program that you sit there and like I personally struggle. I send out a survey. You've been to a few of my events, right? When you
yeah.
send out a survey and you get like the candid feedback that you're just like,
Right, of course. Yes. Yes, you
go,
want it, then you see it, and you're like,
go away,
"I want that."
go away. I don't want that. Like,
Ah,
who asked for your opinion anyway?
yes, everybody but you.
Yeah, right. All right, note to
Uh-huh.
self. I don't want everyone but you, but whatever. But, so, what was that like? Just understanding the investment that you've made with some of that stuff, but going through and hearing some of that feedback, I'm sure that must have felt pretty special at the end.
It did, and it's interesting because the first cohort had to start virtually because we were still in COVID.
Right.
Most people were not flying for the most part. So we did the first cohort, the first 3 days, which is when everyone's together. And that's when a lot of this transformational work's happening. So we did that virtually. So it was like this, it was on Zoom. Now it was still powerful, but nonetheless, we weren't in person. So 10 months later, the graduation was in person. So we'd all gotten to know each other just like this on camera for 10 months. And I mean, we felt very connected. However, it still was, one dimensional. So everybody flew into Philadelphia for the graduation that following June. And wow, just like the connections were they were there. Everybody felt so connected as a group, as a team, because we break people off into individual groups throughout the entire 10 months as well. So they really get to know one another. And then to hear them, so we set the graduation up where I sit in the middle of the room and a couple of the other leaders of Stripes, and we have people come up all day long and share. So they sit on a high top chair or grab a microphone, and we say, so talk about it. What'd you see? What'd you get? And you could cry. I mean, it's that moving. And not only did they share about their professional lives and all the breakthroughs and what has opened up for them, and 90% of them say something about their personal lives. Like, my husband thanks you very much for me going through stripes because I'm a different person at home as well. So they transform, and you see it, and it's visible because there's like this kind of this light that comes through in them, because it's almost like I said, that barrier gets removed and something new becomes available and possible. So to see them all sharing, and I know any of my colleagues would say the same thing, like Blair Dawson, her first graduation, she just like jaw was dropping, like, wow, to really hear Susan Campbell, another one of the, Susan helped me create stripes from a blank piece of paper. And we really, our minds are blown by what opens up for people and the transformation that takes place. They're different. They're different humans. So very, very satisfying, as you said, very fulfilling.
All right, perfect. Well, it's more of a curiosity factor, right? Because you invest all this time and energy and everything in there, and just when you kind of see it, much like your career, when you see it come full circle,
Yeah,
that I don't know if it's a euphoric moment, if that's appropriate or not, but it's
word.
right.
Yes, it's a good word. Yeah, it is. And even a lot of the leaders were there. So if Steve Grosso had some people in there, Miles Herman, Eric McGriff, who else was there? Some of the leaders from Amore. This was our first cohort, and they all came and sat there as well. And they just were, Vince Belcastro, I'm just thinking of some of the leaders, they got to watch the people who they put through, and they all were like, wow, look at them, look at what they're seeing, and then they didn't want to leave. It was like, okay, it's time to go home, and you got your flights, but they just wanted to stay, keep talking and connecting, right? Yeah, they were just
Exactly.
really cool.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. So I'm going to take this a little lighter, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Obviously, I know your passion for Philadelphia sports. We're friends on Facebook, and so let's talk about that and kind of what that's meant to you. And I see you and your dad going to these things, and that's awesome. So I mean, it's just been a great couple of years for I guess Philadelphia. And it hurts me to say that because I'm a New York guy.
It's Jesse, I'm sorry.
So it's like, I'm like, yeah, but hey.
Yes, because you're talking to me, you have to. Right, I get it. Well, yeah, it's funny that you're bringing that up, because I've been a Philadelphia sports person my whole life, and in particular baseball. I love all the sports, but baseball. And as a kid, I played softball and loved the Phillies right away. And one of the most exciting things that has happened to me probably in my whole life is just a few weeks ago, I did take my dad to Clearwater to spring training. And I have been, like I said, a huge Phillies fan. And I got to meet my childhood hero 3 weeks ago. And I'll give you a quiz, see if you can guess who it is, since you know sports. It's Philadelphia Phillies, shortstop, World Series 1980.
Sorry.
All right. You're a little younger than I am, so it may not be right there on your radar. Do you remember any of the 1980s Phillies?
I was born in 81.
Oh, sorry.
So I just look really old for my age. So
you're really young. Oh, that's funny, Jesse. Well, you've probably heard of Steve Carlton, Mike Schmidt.
Yeah.
So these are some of the guys. So the shortstop was Larry Boa.
Okay.
Because I played shortstop as a kid, I gravitated towards him. But I was like obsessed with Larry Boa. I would send him letters because I got his address from my neighborhood piano teacher down the street. His wife was in her store and she's like, I have Larry Moe's address for you. So I would send him little cute, it was 15. I would send him little letters and just introduce myself to him. He finally wrote back. He was probably like, okay, kid, like stop bothering me. But he gave me a signed picture, which is over there in my office shelf.
Oh,
I know, it was so cute. And then I was in Clearwater, like I said, three weeks ago. I brought my dad, and my dad's 83, and trying to spend, like any of us, with our parents as much time with them as I can. And we had an awesome time. One of the highlights being, I'm sitting there, and you know how spring training is, you're right there. The players are like
yeah,
40 feet from you. And I look
yeah.
over to my left and I see Larry Boa. And I didn't even look at my dad. He didn't even know I was right.
Sorry.
Exactly.
Sorry. I gotta go.
That was perfect. Before he could even blink an eye, I was 2 rows over and jumped over to where Larry was. He's standing there and he's talking to 2 women, and I'm just like giving him the eye, like, you've got to wait, don't walk away, you have to talk to me. So they step aside and I went up to him. I'm like, okay, this is going to sound so corny, but I'm probably your biggest fan ever of all time. And he's like, well, hi, nice to meet you. And he's like, oh, this is my wife. And I turn to him, I'm like, you should be worried about me. And I said, no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Sorry about me. And he just laughed. And I said, but since 15, I've been following you every game when he was playing, and I told him which I do, I have a scrapbook that I started in 1980 from the very first game of the season. I think this is the year they won, to the very last game of the season, including all the footage and all the coverage from the World Series parade. So, and every time Larry Boa was in the newspaper, I would cut it out, the article, I'd cut out the box score, I cut out the pictures and highlight stuff. So I told him I have that. And I said, I want you to see it. So I'm figuring out, I've got my ways of how to meet him again during the season and show him the scrapbook. So I still can't, I'm still kind of in shock that I met my childhood hero, but I met him 3
That's
weeks.
awesome. That's awesome. Did he remember writing you a letter or any of the letters growing up? I was wondering how much fan mail he would get at that point.
It's funny that you asked that, because he said, did I write back? And I said, you did. You sent me a picture autographed. And he said, good, because I usually tried to write back to my fans.
Okay.
And I said, you did.
Good answer. Good answer,
Yeah.
buddy.
Exactly. Who knows, right?
I wrote back everybody but you. Be like, come on, dude. Seriously? Like,
Yes. I know, pretty funny. Who knows if it's real, but he did.
no. That's fantastic. And what a way to communicate with people pre-email or social media, because that's one of the bigger challenges that you have right now, right? Is who's responding to these things.
Yeah, email overload, right?
Yeah.
I know. Back then, that's all we were doing, right? Sending snail mail, and I would write on I don't even remember what I wrote, but my little letters, I was 14 and 15 at the time. Yeah.
Well, as long as you didn't cut them out of magazines and paste.
Yeah.
I really
like stalking them or scaring them, right? Hopefully
you're that Lisa. Got it.
Exactly, Jesse. I had
security. Yeah. It's awesome. So besides that fact about you, which I knew a little bit, but not all that, I asked everyone who comes on here to give a little fun fact about them of what makes them tick outside of equipment finance.
Yeah.
Anything you'd like to share?
I said earlier about the Magic, so
Mhm.
the nonprofit that I'm part of. And I would say what makes me tick is where can I give back? Where can I make a difference? And that whole pay it forward. I mean, I've had a really lucky, amazing life from childhood and all the way through. And how can I give back to sometimes some of those people who don't have that? So I've spent a lot of my life, even back to when I was in 7th or 8th grade, I was knocking on doors for the Jerry Lewis telethon. And I would just jump out of the house, grab my little bag and collect money. And I like to do that. So when Steve Grosso asked me to be part of his board several years ago for Magic, and Magic means making a great investment in children, I jumped at the chance. And in particular, he was looking to fill the role of chair for the Adoption and Foster Care Committee. And I have a child who I adopted from Russia, and he is 18 now.
Okay.
And so, he's the joy and love of my life, right? And one of the things that has been super important for my son, his name is Vanya, is educational advocacy, because, I adopted him when he was 4. And we just had some challenges over the years with him in school. So I had an advocate for him way back when he was in 1st grade. And she's been with us. He's a senior. She's been with us all the way through senior year. And I know a lot of families can't afford that, nor do they even know it's available to have an advocate come to every meeting and go to the school with you and understand what your rights are and what are the best direction for your kids. So through Magic, we get to create programs like that. So we just started an educational advocacy program, for example, and that is to give kids that are underprivileged an advocate to go with their parent to every meeting. So that is something that I'm super passionate about. And anytime I can give back, and right now, the opportunity to do that with Steve, and there's other equipment finance people on the board with me. Steve's got a bunch of us together, and we have fun, and we also make a difference. So that I would say is what makes me tick outside of equipment finance. Yep.
No, perfect. And I was going to ask a Magic question before, but I was thinking maybe you might go there, because you've been generous enough to invite me to a few of your calls. And I love the passion that you, Steve, Marty, like everyone just has for that make a great investment in children. What a good,
great.
What a way to spell that out. And for those people watching this and they're not familiar with the work that they're doing, reach out to Lisa or reach out to Steve and do your part. It's a great organization.
Yeah, and thank you for what you're doing with Equipment Finance Cares and giving voice to those of us in the industry who do have all these passions, including yourself and so many others. So it's a great place for us to be together, share what we're committed to, and support each other. So I love what you're doing too, Jesse.
Oh, no, thank you, Lisa. Thank you. And I guess just kind of like in closing here you started in the industry when you were 36. So in 36 years, or you started when you were 0, I guess I should say, when you were born. When you started when you were this many. What would you say your most fulfilling moment to date has been?
Ooh.
That's a tougher question, so I apologize for putting you on there. I'm just more of a curiosity factor.
It's just that it's a hard question, right? Because there's so many really, really great things. I would say, though, when I bought the company and being able to have a team around me and with each other, what we're able to do as a team, and we do it every day. I mean, we're on calls all day long creating. And when I look at, having Rita Garwood as the editor-in-chief and having Susie Angelucci heading up sales, and then, we have so many other people that are so important to the team and what we're able to do, I'd say that's been so satisfying and exciting. And I think that's the highlight for me of my career, this team, what we're doing. And we have so many ideas. I mean, you guys have not heard The Last of Us yet. So there's so much more coming your way. They're just these little infant seeds right now that'll be developed. They've asked me to give it a year, though, on my team. They're like, can we just wait till next year? Yes, I'll wait till next year. But I would say this team, what we're able to do, and we'll just keep at it.
Well, excellent. Well, appreciate your time this afternoon, Lisa. I look forward to seeing you I think by the next time I'll see you, we'll be at the Converge. Yeah.
Could be. Actually, I may go to a couple. There's an ELFA event, Capital Connections, I think.
Okay. No, I'll see you in Capital Connections then.
See you in DC. Yep.
Okay. Well, excellent. Well, thank you for your time today, and really appreciate it. And thank you for sharing your career and talking about the monitor, Lisa.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me, and you're an awesome interviewer.
Don't tell anyone that. I want to set the bar. The bar has to be low,
That's
so that
true.
I can.
Yeah, I get it. Just cruise along. I
Just cruise
get it.
along. I don't want to have any expectations.
You were great. It's great being with you.
All right. Thank you, Lisa.